The two Koreas continue to walk a tightrope amid escalating tensions. North Korea's trash balloon campaign has further heightened the situation, prompting South Korea to suspend a historic inter-Korean military agreement and resume all military operations near the border. Recent series of troubling events have thrusted inter-Korean relations into a new low, with President Yoon Suk-yeol re-emphasizing that peace is achieved through strength, not submission. In this edition of Within the Frame, we decipher North Korea's latest diversity of provocations and examine the implications of the military pact suspension. To help us navigate through the complexities, we're virtually joined by Evans Revere, former U.S. Acting Assistant Secretary of State. It's always a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
Also accompanying us is Ku-youn, Associate Professor of Political Science at Kangwon National University. Professor Chung, it's always great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
All right, let's kick things off with you, Dr. Revere. North Korea has staged a massive trash balloon campaign against the South and attempted to jam GPS signals. It has also been diversifying its missile provocations as well. Although not entirely new, what's behind the recent multiplicity of the North's provocations?
Well, I think as we look at North Korea's increasingly bellicose rhetoric and its highly confrontational posture, what we're witnessing is the outcome of Kim Jong-un's decision to end North-South dialogue, his decision to treat South Korea as an alien and hostile power, and all of this by way of laying the groundwork for a new North Korean posture that will justify the use of military force against South Korea when the opportunity presents itself. And the trash war, if that's the right term, that we are seeing right now is really a metaphor, I think, for the emerging new relationship between Seoul and Pyongyang that has been created by Kim Jong-un's decision. And what I mean by that is, on the one hand, you have activists in South Korea who are sending balloons into the north. And by and large, what those activists are doing is boasting proudly of the dynamic pop culture in South Korea, the economic strength and freedoms that South Korea enjoys, and of course, South Korea's democracy and the international respect and leadership that South Korea have. So those balloons are appealing to the North Korean people. And the message of that appeal is, look what we've done here in South Korea. You can be part of this and you have a right to be part of this. Now look at what North Korea is doing. North Korea has given up trying to appeal to the South Korean people. There was a time when its propaganda leaflets boasted of the DPRK's moral superiority, its strength, and its successes. But today, Pyongyang doesn't seem to have anything positive to say about itself and its system. And that tells us a lot, I think. North Korea realizes there's nothing to say that is going to convince anybody in South Korea. So what we're seeing here is a very appropriate metaphor for what the DPRK has come to represent. After 75 years of juche and communism, this is what North Korea has become, and it's pretty sad to watch.
Some experts also point out that North Korea is trying to divert domestic attention away from its failure to launch another surveillance satellite, which, in your words, like your words, is another sad point. Now, Dr. Chung, South Korea in response has pushed ahead with complete suspension of the 2018 Inter-Korean Military Tension Reduction Agreement. What does this imply? And in your view, how serious is the level of current inter-Korean tensions compared to the past?
So as a response to North Korea's sending trash balloon to South Korea, South Korean governments kind of declared the suspension of the military agreements, which has been signed in 2018 in between two countries. But it might escalate some kind of inadvertent escalation of crisis between two Koreas. But when you look at the South Korea and also North Korea, the inter-Korean relationship, the significance of September 19 military agreement has been already diminished. considering North Korea's numerous missile provocations and its declaration as a nuclear state, as well as its continued aggressive actions, such as openly declaring its nuclear doctrine. And while it seems to be that there may not be further escalation due to the possibility of resuming loudspeaker broadcasts by South Korea, considering North Korea's past behavior, I think it is always possible that provocation can occur in the inter-Korean relationship, including brazen provocations or multi-domain escalation as well. It is always possible, but given the previous record, I think military tension will remain the same.
Well, the suspension is expected to boost the South Korean military's defense posture by lifting various restrictions along the border. But there are also concerns that it may lead to bolder North Korea provocations. Now, Dr. Revere, South Korea has suspended, not nullified, the 2018 military agreement. What are you reading into this?
Well, the South Korean government has made a decision that it has to respond fairly forcefully to the North's provocative actions and the provocative rhetoric that it's hearing. And it also needs to demonstrate a clear determination to protect its people and South Korea's sovereignty. And suspending the 2018 agreement allows Seoul to send a very strong signal to Pyongyang that a bilateral military agreement that many experts have agreed greatly benefited the North Koreans in some very important ways, that agreement is now in mortal danger precisely because of North Korean actions. I think Pyongyang understands that the abrogation of this agreement will increase its own vulnerability. It's going to allow the South Korean armed forces to strengthen their military posture, and it will require North Korea to expend some very scarce resources to counter South Korea's actions. And I think the South Korean government hopes that this sobering realization is going to cause Pyongyang to rethink its current actions and its current posture. I also think that the South Korean government wants the flexibility to resume implementing the agreement if Pyongyang shows a willingness to cooperate. So South Korea is hoping that there may be a path back to stability from where we are right now. Hence, South Korea's posture is one of suspending the agreement rather than nullifying it or completely abrogating it.
And on that note, if I may add, I think the important point here is that North Korea is also yet to officially announce a complete dissolvement of the agreement. So despite the bleak outlook for inter-Korean relations, it looks like the two Koreas appear to have left the door open for a restoration of the pact in the future. Professor Chung, North Korea halted sending trash-filled balloons to the South immediately after South Korea warned of a possible resumption of loudspeaker propaganda along the border. How big of a threat is the loudspeaker broadcast to the North? What kind of messages come out from those speakers?
North Korea view loudspeaker broadcasts as psychological warfare tactics that broadcast information about the reality of North Korea, causing, for instance, like agitations among border area troops and residents. So given that this Kim Jong-un regime are pretty sensitive about this, the reality, and knowing the people knowing the reality of North Korea's inside North Korea, actually, this could be a very sensitive psychological warfare method. So as you mentioned, North Korea's immediate response to South Korea's government announcement regarding the resumption of loudspeaker broadcast could be interpreted as an influence of practical considerations, such as like a realistic burden of needing to respond promptly, given that there is insecurity, which is a primary kind of concern of Kim Jong-un regimes. So probably the message South Korea will convey if it is resumed in the near future, it will include, as mentioned, reality of North Korea, also the reality of South Korea as well, which includes freedom, human rights, and democracy, which is clearly contrasted with North Korea's reality.
Well, flow of information into the north has always been one of the biggest fears of the Kim Jong-un regime. Dr. Revere, the South Korean military has resumed all military operations near the border with the suspension of the 2018 agreement. And yesterday, which marked Memorial Day here in South Korea, a group of North Korean defector activists sent 10 large plastic balloons carrying propaganda leaflets criticizing North Korean regime across the border to the north. What type of provocation is expected next from North Korea?
Well, the actions that Seoul is now able to take with the suspension of the 2018 agreement, most of those actions are largely defensive in nature. They're aimed at enhancing readiness, strengthening reconnaissance capability and intelligence collection, and boosting South Korea's ability to defend its territory and its people. That, of course, doesn't guarantee that North Korea is not going to take a provocative step. It's possible that the KPA might be inclined to engage in some sort of low-key military action. But it also means that if the North Korean military, the KPA, does so, it's going to be facing a strengthened and more capable ROK military that can respond in kind. And the message from South Korea is very clear that it is prepared to respond in kind. So in the aftermath of the latest balloon launches, Pyongyang may feel compelled, as it usually does, to respond to those launches, but it's going to need to weigh very, very carefully the consequences if it decides to go down that path. And so I'm hopeful that we're seeing the likelihood that there may be some more rhetorical blasts from Pyongyang, there may be some more balloons filled with trash, et cetera, but hopefully not much more than that.
So perhaps more balloons and more verbal attacks, but you're not expecting anything radical like the Cheonan warship attack or anything along those lines. Just some low-key provocations.
I stopped predicting how North Korea is going to react many, many years ago. Too many surprises over the years.
Well, the state is unpredictable.
So the important thing for South Korea is readiness. Be ready.
All right. Professor Chung, the third round of the South Korea-U.S. Nuclear Consultative Group meeting will be held in Seoul next week. What additional measures will the allies put forth to further boost extended U.S. deterrence against diversifying North Korea threats?
Well, both United States and South Korea already explored information sharing procedures, crisis, and similar nuclear crisis process and nuclear strategic planning, and also more importantly, nuclear and conventional integrations, and also strategic message to the North Korea and number of exercises, simulations, and the risk reduction measures. So I think these all entire kind of measures and domains will be reviewed in the first place, and finding kind of loopholes and weaknesses, what have ever actually been done, and also given the diversifications of North Korea's threat, as Dr. Revere mentions, such as multi-domain crisis escalations or gray zone provocations, or sometimes even like a simultaneity of different crises in the regions, might be explored in the future as well. It might be the kind of agenda for the future coordination, given the Northeast Asia's kind of security landscape become ever more complex and more interrelated between North Korea and other security threat as well. So this entire kind of security landscape will be discussed in the first place. Then they will discuss how they reintegrate their capabilities and coordinating the processes.
And staying with you, Professor Chung, IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi gave the agency's latest assessment on North Korea's new nuclear complex in Kangwon, located near Pyongyang. He said the construction of the main building appears to be complete, and the complex shares infrastructure characteristics with the uranium enrichment facility at Yongbyon. What are the implications of this?
Well, the Kangwon complex emerged during the U.S.-DPRK dialogue in 2019, when the President Trump actually mentions this Kangwon facilities during the dialogue, actually, which has been said that surprised North Korea, as they were not expecting the U.S. was aware of this existence of these facilities. U.S. intelligence has been long closely and monitoring this Kangwon facility as another high-enriched uranium production site outside Yongbyon, which could contribute to the expansion of North Korea's nuclear weapon development and capabilities. And as we already discussed, North Korea has constitutionally declared itself as a nuclear armed state and continue to mention the expansion and deployment of nuclear weapons. And these facilities actually will back the rhetoric by substantive production infrastructures. And given that North Korea's ongoing nuclear weapon productions, North Korea, it already kind of surpasses North Korea's minimum deterrence capabilities, which raise international concern about the possibility of preemptive strike or more aggressive behavior of North Korea using nuclear weapons and other weapons as well. So this will actually provide concern for international community.
Very concerning indeed. Dr. Revere, South Korea has begun its one-month rotating presidency at the UN Security Council. What role do you expect South Korea to play, especially in handling North Korea-related issues?
Well, with tensions rising the way they are on the Korean Peninsula, it's going to be very important for the Republic of Korea to keep the attention of the UN Security Council focused on the Korean Peninsula, and also to remind the permanent members of the Security Council of their very special responsibility when it comes to the Korean Peninsula, particularly the responsibility for the enforcement of the Council's resolutions on North Korea. And of course, the actions that the Security Council and other organs of the UN might take to deal with the horrific human rights situation in the DPRK. This is not a message that Russia and China want to hear, but it is one that they need to hear, and I hope that South Korea will take the lead in making sure that they continue to hear that message. I think South Korea can also play a leading role with other supportive members to develop strategies to keep the pressure on Moscow and Beijing. I think South Korea can also highlight the unhelpful role that China and Russia are playing right now, and also work with the international community to overcome the roadblocks that China and Russia are placing in the path of efforts to enforce UN Security Council sanctions. So South Korea has a lot of heavy lifting to do, and I'm sure that that they will indeed do this and much more during their term on the council.
Right. Although it's only a one-month presidency, South Korea is expected to highlight North Korea's human rights abuses alongside its development of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles as well. Professor Chung, delivering a speech marking Memorial Day, President Yoon stressed that peace is achieved through strength, not submission, and South Korea should become stronger to induce a change in North Korea. We want to hear your thoughts on this.
Actually, the statements by the president has been consistently maintained since the early days of Yoon Suk-yeol administrations, and it is actually originated from the fact that compared to North Korea policy of the past Moon Jae-in administration, which attempt to restoring inter-Korean relations will be leading to North Korea and United States relationship, and that has been in vain. And Yoon Suk-yeol administration statement about this is kind of reflection that such appeasement or kind of pursuing dialogue with North Korea does not solve any problem when it comes to denuclearizations. So in that sense, the Yoon Suk-yeol administration has consistently pursued the strengthening defense capabilities. Of course, in response to North Korea's continuing provocations as well as diversification of the threats, rather than weakening security posture for dialogue. And that's why South Korea kind of strengthened its relationship with the United States, other partner countries in the Indo-Pacific as well. So given that North Korea's provocations are becoming ever more threatening, I think this statement shows the kind of resolve of South Korea and how they're going to maintain this relationship between two Koreas. Only they have strengthened and kind of credibility of their resolve about these denuclearizations, North Korea will be persuaded and kind of be on the same page about this denuclearization or maintain stability on the Korean Peninsula. I think that's kind of gist of what President Yoon Suk-yeol actually mentions during his speech.
So this shows the Yoon administration's strong resolve and its consistency in dealing with North Korea. But it's a tough question, isn't it? Some argue that South Korea should no longer be dragged around by North Korea and stick to its consistent hardline policy, while others argue that mounting hostility will only lead to more North Korea provocations, placing South Korean people's safety at risk. Well, we'll conclude our discussion there, but we'll watch very closely on developments, especially along the border. Thank you so much, Professor Chung and Dr. Revere, as always, for your insights.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with more same time next week. Have a great weekend.